The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy and fate. It whispers warnings to those who can hear it, shows glimpses of futures yet unwritten, and guides the worthy toward their destiny. But what happens when something arrives that the Force cannot touch? Something from beyond the stars, beyond the very fabric of reality itself, carrying with it a philosophy so absolute that even the dark side seems merciful by comparison? The Imperial sensor operator on monitoring station Epsilon 7 had been staring at his screen for 6 hours when the impossible happened. One moment, the deep space grid showed nothing but the usual scatter of asteroids and background radiation near the Coruscant system's outer rim. The next, every alarm in the station began shrieking at once. "Contact! Multiple contacts!" he screamed into the comm. "Unknown configuration, massive energy signature. Wait, no, that can't be right." The readings made no sense. Something enormous had simply appeared in real space without any hyperspace entry signature. No ship could do that. Nothing could do that. The laws of physics themselves seemed to have been violated. On the main view screen, space itself seemed to tear open like a wound in reality. Purple and black energy crackled across the void as a shape emerged, a warship unlike anything in Imperial databases. It was massive, easily dwarfing a Star Destroyer, with a design that seemed almost organic. Curved blades jutted from its hull like the ribs of some colossal beast, and its surface rippled with an energy that made the sensors scream in protest. Behind it, smaller shapes poured through the closing rift. Troop transports of alien design, fighter craft that moved with disturbing fluidity, and something else. Creatures tumbling through space before attaching themselves to the larger ship's hull like parasites finding a host. "Get me Imperial Center!" the station commander shouted. "Get me anyone! We need Star Destroyers here now!" The alien warship's weapons lit up. There was no warning, no hail, no demand for identification. Energy beams of a strange purple hue lanced out across the void, and monitoring station Epsilon 7 ceased to exist in a flash of vaporized metal and screaming static. Aboard the warship Sanctuary 2, Thanos stood on his command throne and surveyed the viewport with cold satisfaction. The station had been destroyed efficiently. No wasted energy, no excessive force. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. "My lord," Ebony Maw's raspy voice drifted across the bridge. The slender, corpse-like creature floated beside Thanos' throne, his elongated fingers steepled in perpetual contemplation. "The dimensional breach has closed. We are isolated." "I am aware, Ma." Thanos' voice was deep, resonant, and utterly calm. Where others might panic at being stranded in an unknown universe, the Mad Titan saw only opportunity. "Corvus, status report." Corvus Glaive stepped forward, his glaive weapon humming with barely contained energy. The tall, skeletal warrior's face was as impassive as carved stone. Hull integrity at 73%, hyperdrive systems damaged but repairable, outrider pods stable, Chitauri shock troops at 30% combat effectiveness. "The Black Order is intact." "Proxima?" Thanos turned his gaze to the blue-skinned warrior woman who stood guard at the bridge entrance. "Ready to kill whatever needs killing in this forsaken place," she replied, her triple-bladed spear crackling with energy. Beside her, the massive form of Cull Obsidian growled his agreement, his chain hammer scraping against the deck plating. Thanos nodded slowly. Reduced forces, damaged ship, unknown territory. Most commanders would consider this a disaster. Thanos considered it a challenge. "Ebony Maw, access their communications networks. I want to know everything about this galaxy. Its population centers, its resources, its governments, and most importantly..." Thanos' eyes narrowed as he stared out at the distant lights of an entire star system teeming with life. Its weapons. Over the next hours, Maw worked his telekinetic magic on the captured sensor data and intercepted transmissions. What he discovered made even the normally unflappable sorcerer pause. "My lord, this galaxy is vast. Millions of inhabited systems, trillions of beings. and they are ruled by something called the Galactic Empire, a fascist regime centered on a planet called Coruscant, controlled by an emperor who wields some form of mystical power they call the Force. Mysticism. Thanos' voice dripped with disdain. Superstition masquerading as governance. Perhaps, my lord, but this empire has constructed something that may interest you. Ma gestured, and a holographic schematic appeared in the air, a spherical space station the size of a small moon. They call it the Death Star, a mobile battle station capable of destroying entire planets with a single shot. The first was recently destroyed by rebels, but intelligence suggests they are constructing a second, even more powerful version. Silence fell across the bridge. Even Corvus Glaive, who feared nothing, seemed to hold his breath. Thanos rose from his throne slowly, his massive form casting shadows across the hologram. He studied the Death Star schematic with the intensity of a predator sizing up prey. Then, for the first time since arriving in this strange new galaxy, the Mad Titan smiled. "A weapon capable of eliminating all life on a planet instantaneously," he said softly. "No ground invasion, no occupation forces, no resource expenditure, simply balance achieved at the speed of light." His smile widened. "Ma, send a message on all Imperial frequencies. Let this Emperor know that Thanos has arrived, and let him know that his Death Star now belongs to me." "My lord," Ma hesitated, "we do not yet understand this force they speak of. Their Emperor may possess powers we cannot. I have fought gods, Ma. I have seen civilizations rise and fall across 1,000 worlds. I have studied the mathematics of extinction and perfected the art of merciful genocide." Thanos' purple skin seemed to darken with resolve. "Whatever mystical powers this Emperor possesses, they will mean nothing when I sit upon his throne and use his own weapon to bring balance to this galaxy." Outside the viewport, a Star Destroyer dropped out of hyperspace, flanked by 2 more. Imperial response had arrived. TIE fighters swarmed from their hangar bays like angry insects. Proxima Midnight stepped forward, her spear ready. "Shall we destroy them?" "No," Thanos said calmly. "Let half of them live. Let them carry word back to their Emperor." He turned to face his Black Order, his children, his most loyal servants. This galaxy drowns in life. Resources strain under the weight of trillions who consume without thought for tomorrow. They need salvation. They need balance. And I will give it to them, whether they wish it or not. The Star Destroyers opened fire. Sanctuary 2 shuddered under the impact of turbolaser batteries, but Thanos didn't flinch. He simply watched as Corvus Glaive calculated firing solutions with cold precision. "Return fire," Thanos commanded. "Destroy the lead vessel. Leave the others damaged but functional. Let them run home. Let them tell their Emperor that mercy came for them today." His eyes gleamed with absolute certainty. "Tomorrow I will come for the Death Star, and then the real work begins." If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The Sanctuary 2's weapons spoke, and in the void of space, an Imperial Star Destroyer broke in half, its survivors scrambling for escape pods while their sister ships retreated into hyperspace, carrying with them the first whispers of a new nightmare descending upon the galaxy, a nightmare that called itself salvation. The Imperial Palace on Coruscant had witnessed countless moments of crisis during its long history. Senators had been assassinated in its halls, wars had been declared from its chambers, empires had risen and fallen within its walls. But never had it experienced a silence quite like this, the suffocating quiet that descended when Emperor Palpatine himself sat motionless upon his throne, listening to a message that should not exist. "Your Death Star now belongs to me." The holographic recording flickered in the dim throne room. The figure speaking was massive, purple-skinned, with a ridged chin and eyes that held no fear, no doubt, no hesitation, just absolute certainty. Grand Moff Tarkin stood beside Admiral Piet, both men's faces carefully neutral despite the sweat forming at their collars. Behind them, a dozen other high-ranking Imperial officers waited for their Emperor's response. No one dared speak first. "Play it again?" Palpatine's voice was barely a whisper, but it cut through the silence like a vibroblade. The hologram reset. Thanos appeared once more, his image captured from the sensor logs of the fleeing Star Destroyers. "I am Thanos of Titan. I have crossed the void between realities and found your galaxy wanting. You are ruled by fear and superstition. You waste resources on oppression when extinction would serve better. You possess a weapon of perfect balance, the Death Star, yet use it for petty displays of power rather than its true purpose." The alien warlord leaned forward, and even through the hologram, his presence was overwhelming. "I offer you one chance, Emperor. Surrender the Death Star, abdicate your throne. Accept that your reign was merely preparation for my arrival. Do this and I will allow half your empire to live. Refuse and I will take it by force, and your mercy will be proportional to your resistance." The hologram ended. Silence returned. "Interesting," Palpatine finally said, his withered fingers drumming on his throne's armrest. "Most interesting indeed." "My lord," Tarkin ventured carefully, "this alien is clearly mad. The Death Star was impregnable. The second Death Star will be even more so. His threats are empty posturing." "Are they?" Palpatine's yellow eyes fixed on the Grand Moff. He appeared from nowhere, no hyperspace signature, no gravitational wake. One moment the sensors showed empty space, the next a fleet. The Emperor's voice dropped lower. "Through the Force, I sense nothing from him, a void. An absence, as if he does not exist in the natural order of things." "Forgive me, my Emperor," Admiral Piet spoke up, his voice tight. "But our 3 Star Destroyers engaged his vessel. The Intimidator was destroyed in under 2 minutes. His weapons are unlike anything we've encountered. Our shields barely slowed them." "And yet he allowed the other 2 to escape," Palpatine mused. "He chose to let them live. Why?" No one had an answer. The throne room doors hissed open. Every officer turned as one, hands instinctively moving towards sidearms before they recognized the towering figure in black armor, his respirator wheezing rhythmically in the silence. "Lord Vader," Palpatine's voice took on a different quality, still commanding but with an edge of anticipation. "You have felt it. It was not a question." Darth Vader strode forward, his cape billowing behind him. When he spoke, his mechanical voice carried an unusual tension. "Yes, my master, a disturbance unlike any I have encountered. Not the light, not the dark, something other." "Can you sense his intentions?" "No." The admission clearly frustrated the Dark Lord. "When I reach through the Force toward this being, there is nothing, a shadow where a presence should be, but those around him—" Vader paused. "They radiate death, not the natural death of all living things, calculated death, measured, methodical." Palpatine leaned forward, his hood casting his face in deeper shadow. "Then he is a threat." "He is an opportunity," Vader countered, surprising everyone in the room. "If his claims are true, if he commands technology and forces unknown to this galaxy, then eliminating him would be wasteful. Perhaps he could be turned to serve the Empire, broken, rebuilt in our image. Or perhaps," Palpatine's voice turned silky with dark amusement, "he believes he can do the same to us." Another officer burst into the throne room, his uniform disheveled, his face pale. "My lord, another attack, the Corellian sector. A convoy of supply ships was intercepted, half destroyed, half allowed to escape. The survivors report creatures, bioweapons that don't show up on life sign scanners. And there was a message left on the hull of the surviving ships, burned into the metal." "What did it say?" Tarkin demanded. The officer swallowed hard. "Balance through sacrifice, submit or be balanced. Signed, Thanos." Murmurs rippled through the assembled officers. Palpatine silenced them with a raised hand. "He is making examples," the Emperor said softly. "Testing our response time, mapping our supply lines, learning." Those yellow eyes gleamed with something that might have been respect. "He is intelligent, disciplined, and absolutely committed to his delusions of cosmic balance. Then we crush him. Vader stated flatly. "I will take the Executor and the Death Squadron. This threat will be eliminated." "No." Palpatine's refusal was sharp. "Not yet. First, I wish to understand what we face. Vader, you will take a small task force, no more than 3 Star Destroyers, engage his forces, test their capabilities, discover the limits of his technology and the extent of his madness." "And if he proves too dangerous?" Tarkin asked. Palpatine smiled, a terrible expression that made even hardened Imperial officers look away. "Then we will accelerate the Death Star 2's construction schedule. If this Thanos wishes to claim it, let him try to seize it while it hangs in orbit over Endor, defended by the entire Imperial fleet and my personal attention." The Emperor's fingers crackled with barely contained force lightning. "Let him learn that this galaxy already has a master, and that master does not share power." Vader bowed. "As you wish, my master, but I must counsel caution. This being radiates purpose. Whatever drives him, it is absolute. Men who believe themselves righteous are far more dangerous than those who simply seek power." "Then it is fortunate," Palpatine replied, "that I have spent decades breaking the righteous. The Jedi believe themselves saviors too. Where are they now?" He gestured dismissively. "Go, Lord Vader, find this Thanos, engage him. Show him that the Force is more powerful than any technology he commands, and if the opportunity presents itself." The Emperor's smile widened. "Kill him, but bring me his body. I wish to study what manner of creature believes itself my equal." As Vader turned to leave, Palpatine added one more command. "And Vader, be wary of his words. From the reports, he is articulate, philosophical. He will try to justify his actions to present his genocide as mercy. Do not listen. Men who dress their evil in nobility are the most dangerous of all. They believe their own lies." Vader's respirator wheezed 3 times before he responded. "I am familiar with such men, my master. I was once one of them." The Dark Lord swept from the throne room, leaving behind an Emperor who stared at the frozen hologram of Thanos, studying every detail of the alien warlord's face. "Interesting," Palpatine whispered again. "He does not seek to rule through fear, he seeks to rule through certainty, through mathematics, through the cold logic of resource management." The Emperor's laugh was a dry, rasping thing. "He actually believes he's saving them. How delightfully insane." In the depths of space, a sector away, Sanctuary T hung in the shadow of a dead moon. Ebony Maw drifted to his master's side, his telekinetic powers allowing him to float effortlessly across the bridge. "My lord, Imperial communications are alive with chatter. They speak your name with fear now. Your message has been received." "Good." Thanos did not turn from the viewport, where he watched a distant world rotate slowly on its axis, blue and green, teeming with life, beautiful and unsustainable. "Fear is a tool, Maw, but not the tool. I do not wish them to fear me. I wish them to understand me. And if they do not, then they will serve as examples for those who come after." Thanos finally turned, his expression thoughtful. "This Emperor, Palpatine, he has built something remarkable. An infrastructure spanning thousands of systems, logistics, communications, military might, all the tools needed for salvation used instead for oppression." He moved to his throne and sat, his massive frame filling the seat perfectly. "I will take his throne, Maw. Not for power, not for glory, but because someone must have the will to do what must be done. This galaxy produces more life than its resources can sustain. The math is simple, the solution is simple. Only the execution requires strength. They will fight you, my lord." "I know." Thanos smiled grimly. "And I will let them, because when they see their fleets break against my forces, when they watch their heroes fall, when they finally understand that resistance only increases the cost of salvation, then they will submit, not from fear, from understanding. And this Darth Vader, their champion? Send him coordinates. I wish to meet this warrior who wields their mystical force. Let us see if superstition can stand against certainty." Thanos stood and gestured to Proxima Midnight. Prepare the Outriders. We hunt for resources and intelligence. Every Imperial outpost we encounter, we balance. Every world that refuses to acknowledge the inevitable, we teach. And every day we move closer to the Death Star. And when we reach it? Corvus Glaive asked. Thanos' expression hardened into absolute resolve. Then this galaxy learns what true balance looks like. The Imperial outpost on Ryloth's second moon should have been impregnable, 30,000 personnel, a full battalion of stormtroopers, turbolaser emplacements covering every approach vector. Shield generators powerful enough to withstand a sustained orbital bombardment. General Syndola's rebel cell had tried to breach it 3 times and failed each time with heavy casualties. Thanos took it in 17 minutes. The attack came without warning. One moment, the moon's defense grid showed clear space. The next, something massive and fast slammed into the shields with such force that every power relay on the moon overloaded simultaneously. The shields didn't just fail, they shattered, feedback surging through the generators and turning them into molten slag. Before the garrison could even sound general quarters, the Outriders arrived. They came like a plague, thousands of 4-legged bioweapons that didn't register on life sign scanners, moving with horrifying speed across the moon's surface. Stormtroopers opened fire, and the creatures simply absorbed the blaster bolts into their thick hides, roaring with hunger as they swarmed defensive positions. Commander Voss watched from the command center as his perimeter collapsed in real time. All units, fall back to secondary positions. Get those ATSTs operational. The ceiling exploded inward, not from bombardment, from something tearing through it with telekinetic force. Ebony Maw floated down through the breach, his robes billowing despite the lack of wind. Around him, chunks of permacrete and twisted metal hung suspended in midair, rotating slowly like planets orbiting a dark star. "Good evening, gentlemen." Maw's voice was cultured, almost polite. "My master extends his regards and asks that you make this simple. Half of you will live, half will die, the choice of which half is yours to make." Voss drew his blaster. "We don't negotiate with—" Maw flicked a finger. The blaster crumpled like paper and clattered to the floor. Another gesture, and Voss found himself lifted off his feet, hanging in the air, an invisible hand wrapped around his throat. "You misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. This is mathematics." Maw's eyes gleamed with cold amusement. "You are 15,342 souls on this installation. 7,671 of you will die today. The remainder will live to carry a message to your emperor. You may choose who lives and who dies, Gosananes, or my master will choose for you, randomized, perfectly balanced." "You're insane," Voss choked out. "Sanity is relative, Commander. My master has watched civilizations devour themselves through overpopulation and resource depletion. He has seen the mathematics of extinction play out across 1,000 worlds. What we offer is mercy, a calling, yes, but one that allows the remainder to thrive." Maw set Voss down gently. "You have 5 minutes to decide. Choose wisely." Above the moon, aboard Sanctuary 2, Thanos stood at a viewscreen watching the tactical display. Proxima Midnight and Corvus Glaive flanked him, while Cull Obsidian waited in the hangar bay with the Chitauri shock troops. "They are evacuating," Proxima observed, watching escape pods launching from the far side of the installation. "Cowards fleeing while their comrades die." "Let them," Thanos said calmly. "Every survivor carries our message further. Every tale of our mercy spreads our philosophy." "That is not mercy, my lord," a new voice spoke from the shadows of the bridge. "That is terrorism dressed in philosophy's clothing." Thanos didn't turn, but his voice sharpened. "You have objections, Gamora?" His adopted daughter stepped into the light, her green skin pale, her expression troubled. She had been silent since their arrival in this strange galaxy, but now her voice carried steel. "You said we came here by accident, a dimensional rift. We are stranded, perhaps forever. Why not simply coexist? Why immediately begin the culling?" "Because it is necessary." Thanos finally turned to face her. This galaxy has 54 trillion sentient beings spread across millions of inhabited worlds. Their population growth is exponential, their resource consumption is unsustainable. Within 3 generations, perhaps 4, they will face total civilizational collapse. Famine, plague, wars that make their current conflicts seem like children's games. You don't know that, Gamora insisted. This isn't our galaxy. The rules may be different. The rules are universal, daughter. Mathematics cares nothing for borders or reality itself. Life consumes, populations grow, resources dwindle, and in the end, all things collapse under their own weight unless balanced. He moved closer to her, his voice gentling slightly. I do this not from cruelty, but from love. I am saving them from themselves. By killing half of them. By allowing half to survive, there is a difference. Gamora looked away, unable to hold his gaze. Father, these people have families, children. They are not numbers on a ledger. They are exactly numbers on a ledger, Thanos interrupted, his voice hardening again. And the ledger does not balance. It never balances, not without intervention. He placed a hand on her shoulder, a gesture that might have seemed tender if not for the iron in his grip. You question me now because you are young. You still believe in fairy tales, that resources can be infinite, that growth can be endless, that hope alone can feed trillions. I believed such things once. Then I watched my world die. I will not watch another. On the view screen, the outpost commander appeared in a live transmission. His face was streaked with tears, his voice broken. We have made our selection. 7,671 personnel will remain in the command center. The others are being evacuated now. Please honor your word. Thanos studied the man for a long moment. You have chosen well, Commander. Your sacrifice will be remembered. Your survivors will tell your story. He nodded to Corvus Glaive. Proceed. The Glaive warrior input the command. Precision strikes from Sanctuary 2 lanced down and the command center vanished in a flash of purple energy. Exactly 7,671 lives ended in an instant. Painless, efficient, balanced. The surviving Imperial forces fled in their transports, carrying with them the horror of what they had witnessed, and the knowledge that Thanos kept his word. Half lived, half died, perfectly, mathematically, inevitably. My lord, Ma's voice crackled over the comm. The installation is secured. We have captured Imperial intelligence regarding the Death Star's construction. It is being built in the Endor system orbiting the Forest Moon. Completion is estimated at 6 months. Too long, Thanos replied. We will accelerate their timeline. Corvus, plot a course to the Fondor shipyards. If the Empire wishes to build superweapons, let us give them motivation. Father, Gamora's voice was small, defeated. What if you're wrong? What if there is another way? Thanos turned to her, and for a moment something like sorrow crossed his features. Then show me, daughter. Show me a galaxy where trillions can live in harmony without consuming themselves into extinction. Show me the mathematics of infinite growth on finite resources. Show me hope that is not simply denial with a prettier name. He waited, but she had no answer. Until that day comes, I will do what must be done. Not because I enjoy it, not because I seek glory, but because someone must have the will to act when others will only despair. He returned his gaze to the viewport, where Ryloth's moon now burned with scattered fires, half its garrison dead, half in panicked retreat. Balanced through sacrifice, it is the only equation that works, the only mercy that matters. Hours later, aboard the Superstar Destroyer Executor, Darth Vader received the reports from Ryloth with cold fury. He stood in his meditation chamber, surrounded by darkness, reaching through the Force for understanding. The installation had fallen faster than should have been possible. The defenders had been overwhelmed by creatures that felt wrong in the Force, empty vessels, biological weapons without true life. And this Ebony Maw, he wielded powers similar to the Force but distinctly different. Telekinesis without connection to the living energy field, power without passion or serenity. It was mechanical, calculated. "Admiral Piet," Vader's voice echoed through the ship's intercom. "Set course for the Fondor shipyards, maximum speed. If Thanos follows the pattern, he will strike there next." "At once, Lord Vader. Shall I notify the Emperor?" "No, I will handle this personally." Vader's fists clenched at his sides. This mad titan believes he can simply take what he wishes from the Empire. He will learn that some prizes are defended by more than soldiers and shields. Vader closed his eyes and reached out through the Force once more, searching for the void where Thanos should be. There, a shadow in the cosmic energy, moving with purpose toward the shipyards. And something else, something Vader had not felt in years, certainty. This being, this Thanos, did not doubt, did not question, did not waver. He believed himself righteous with the same absolute conviction that the Jedi once possessed. And that, Vader knew from bitter experience, made him more dangerous than any mere conqueror. "Let us see," Vader whispered to the darkness, "if philosophy can withstand the dark side of the Force." Aboard Sanctuary 2, Thanos sat upon his throne and stared at the holographic schematic of the Death Star that rotated slowly before him. Such elegant destructive capability, such perfect efficiency, a weapon that could eliminate billions with a single trigger pull. It was beautiful, and soon it would be his. The Fondor shipyard stretched across orbital space like a mechanical archipelago, dozens of construction frames, each one holding a Star Destroyer in various stages of completion. Hundreds of thousands of workers, droids, and engineers labored around the clock to feed the Empire's insatiable appetite for warships. It was one of the most heavily defended industrial centers in the galaxy, protected by a full fleet, planetary shields, and enough firepower to reduce a rebel armada to atoms. Thanos studied it like a predator studying prey. "Ma, analysis," he commanded from his throne. The telekinetic sorcerer floated forward, his fingers weaving through holographic displays. 17 Star Destroyers in various completion stages, 8 are operational and crewed, the remaining 9 are skeletal frames. Defense grid includes 42 orbital defense platforms, 6 Golan 2 battle stations, and a planetary shield generator on Fondor's surface. Estimated garrison 300,000 military personnel, 2 million civilian workers. Resources? Extensive. The shipyards contain enough Durasteel, Tabana gas, and Kyber crystals to construct a significant fleet. Seizing them would cripple Imperial production capacity for years. Thanos nodded slowly. And how many must die to achieve balance? By population count, 1,100,000 souls. Gamora, standing silently at the edge of the bridge, closed her eyes. She had stopped arguing hours ago. The numbers always won. Mathematics was her father's god, and gods did not listen to prayers. Corvus, Thanos stood, his massive form casting long shadows across the bridge. Take the Black Order and secure the primary construction frames. Disable their main vessels but leave half operational. Proxima, lead the Outriders against the defense platforms. Cull half, leave the rest as testament to our mercy. "And you, my lord?" Corvus Glaive asked, his weapon humming with anticipation. "I will speak with whoever commands this place. I will offer them the same choice I offered Ryloth. Surrender half, save half. Balance through wisdom rather than force." Thanos' expression hardened. "But make no mistake, if they refuse, we will take what we need and balance them regardless." "Father," Gamora's voice cut through the tactical planning, "the Empire will respond with overwhelming force. You're attacking a strategic target. They'll send everything." "Good," Thanos turned to her. And in his eyes burned something that might have been eagerness. "I want them to respond. I want this Emperor and his Dark Lord to see that their fleets mean nothing. Their superweapons mean nothing. The only thing that matters is the will to do what must be done." The attack began at IL 400 station time. Sanctuary 2 dropped out of its approach vector directly above Fondor's North Pole, bypassing the main defense grid entirely. Before the orbital platforms could reorient their weapons, Chitauri boarding craft launched like a swarm of metallic locusts. On defense platform Sigma 7, Commander Wessex had exactly 12 seconds between the proximity alarm and the breach. Chitauri's shock troops poured through the hall, their energy weapons tearing through stormtroopers with brutal efficiency. These were not the mindless drones from Thanos' home reality. These were the survivors of the dimensional crossing, hardened, intelligent, and utterly loyal to their master. "All hands repel boarders!" Wessex shouted, firing his heavy blaster pistol into the oncoming wave. A Chitauri soldier's head exploded, but 3 more took its place. "Someone get me reinforcements!" The wall beside him ripped open, not from weapons fire, but from invisible force. Through the breach floated Ebony Maw, and behind him came something that made Wessex's blood freeze. Proxima Midnight moved like death-given form, her triple-bladed spear spinning in a blur of blue energy. Stormtroopers died before they could aim, officers fell before they could scream, and through it all, Maw floated serenely, directing debris and corpses with casual gestures, clearing paths for the assault. "Commander Wessex," Maw's cultured voice somehow carried over the chaos, "my master wishes to speak with your superior immediately, or this platform becomes a tomb for all aboard." Wessex looked at the carnage, at the bodies of his men, at the impossible aliens who wielded powers that seemed to mock the very concept of conventional warfare. He dropped his blaster and reached for the command console with shaking hands. "This is Platform Sigma-7 to Shipyard Command. We are under attack by unknown hostiles, requesting immediate—" "Commander!" Admiral Terran's voice came through tight with barely controlled panic. "All platforms are reporting simultaneous breaches. I'm reading over 2,000 enemy combatants across the defense grid. Where did they come from?" Before Wessex could answer, every screen in the command center flickered and died. Then, slowly, they illuminated again, but instead of tactical displays, they showed a single image. Thanos sat upon his throne, hands resting calmly on the armrests, his expression neutral. When he spoke, his voice echoed from every speaker in the Fondor system. "I am Thanos. You have heard of me by now, you know what I offer, you know what I require." He leaned forward slightly. "The Fondor shipyards house 2,200,000 souls. By the mathematics of balance, half must be removed for the system to achieve sustainability. I offer you a choice, select the half who will die or I will randomize the selection. You have 30 minutes. The transmission ended. Silence fell across every platform, every ship, every construction frame. Then Admiral Terran's voice, cold and defiant. "All ships, open fire! Kill these aliens! For the Emperor!" 8 Star Destroyers turned their guns on Sanctuary 2. Turbo laser fire lit up the void like a green storm. The alien warship's shields flared, absorbing the punishment, holding firm despite the concentrated barrage. Thanos watched the display with something like disappointment. They choose defiance, so be it. Ma, implement Protocol Omega. "With pleasure, my lord." On every platform where the Black Order had breached, Ebony Maw's voice whispered through the Force or whatever power he wielded. It slithered into the minds of Imperial personnel, not commanding but suggesting, offering, tempting, save yourselves, designate the others, live to see tomorrow. On Platform Sigma-7, Commander Wessex found himself thinking terrible thoughts. Half would die regardless. That was mathematical certainty now. But if he could choose, he could save the good soldiers, the loyal officers, the engineers with families. He could sacrifice the troublemakers, the malcontents, the expendable. His hand moved to the personnel roster without conscious thought. Across the shipyard, similar scenes played out. The Empire had trained its people to follow orders, to maintain hierarchy, to value efficiency above all else. Ma simply pushed them one step further, from efficiency to triage, from triage to selection, from selection to condemnation. Within 20 minutes, the lists were complete. Thanos received them without emotion. Corvus, execute the protocols, precisely, painlessly, balanced. The deaths came swiftly, explosive decompression, targeted life support failures, precision strikes that vaporized entire sections while leaving others untouched. No torture, no suffering, just mathematics made manifest. 1,100,000 Imperial personnel died in 17 minutes. Admiral Terran survived. He stood on the bridge of his Star Destroyer, watching his shipyards burn, listening to the screams on the comm channels cut off one by one. He had refused to make the selection. His officers had done it for him. "All ships," his voice was hollow, broken. "Cease fire. We surrender." "Unacceptable," Thanos' voice came through the comm. "Surrender requires humility. You showed defiance. The price has been paid. Now you will provide service." What do you want?" "Your shipyards, your engineers, your expertise. I require repairs to my vessel and understanding of your construction techniques. In exchange, I will leave the remainder of your personnel alive. Half your production capacity will be dedicated to my fleet. The other half may continue Imperial work." "The Emperor will never—" "The Emperor is not here. I am. And you, Admiral, have already proven that when faced with impossible mathematics, you will choose survival. So choose now, cooperation, or I return and balance what remains." Terran looked at his tactical display, at the platform still burning, at the Star Destroyers listing in orbit, their shields down, their crews decimated, at the alien warship that sat undamaged despite everything they had thrown at it. We cooperate." "Wise." Thanos terminated the connection and turned to his Black Order. "Secure the shipyards. Begin repairs and resource acquisition, and bring me every piece of intelligence they have on the Death Star's construction. If we cannot seize it by stealth, we will learn to build our own." Gamora finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "You've made them complicit. You made them choose their own to die." "Yes." Thanos met her gaze without shame. "Because when they look back on this day, they will remember that they made the choice. They were not helpless victims. They were active participants in their own salvation. That knowledge will haunt them, shape them, teach them that survival requires sacrifice. It is a lesson their Emperor has never taught them. That power without purpose is waste. That's not wisdom, Father. That's trauma. Trauma teaches what comfort never can." Thanos turned back to the viewport. "Where Fondor hung like a jewel against the void. This galaxy will learn, daughter, one way or another." Light years away aboard the Executor, Darth Vader felt the disturbance in the Force. 1,000,000 deaths, sudden and coordinated. Not the chaos of battle, not the passion of murder, just cessation. Lives ended with mathematical precision. "Lord Vader," Admiral Piet's voice was tight. "We're receiving emergency transmissions from Fondor. They're under attack. Thanos has seized the shipyards." "I know." Vader's hands clenched into fists. "I felt them die." "Shall we change course? We could reach Fondor and— No, he is already gone by now. Thanos does not linger. He strikes, balances, and moves forward." Vader turned from the viewport, his cape swirling. "But he has made a mistake. He has shown us his pattern, his philosophy, his predictability." "My lord?" "He seeks the Death Star. Every action brings him closer to it. Every attack secures resources for that goal. He is intelligent but single-minded, and single-minded enemies." Vader's respirator wheezed with dark satisfaction. "Can be anticipated. What are your orders?" "We go to Endor. We fortify the Death Star. We turn it into a trap." Vader's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "And when Thanos arrives to claim his prize, he will find not a weapon to steal, but a tomb to die in." In the Emperor's throne room, Palpatine watched holographic reports of the Fondor massacre with growing fascination. He had expected rage, he had anticipated fury. Instead, he felt something else entirely: interest. This Thanos was not merely a conqueror. He was a philosopher king, convinced of his own righteousness. And that made him vulnerable in ways brute force never could be. "Fascinating," Palpatine whispered to the shadows. "He believes he serves a higher purpose, that his genocide is mercy, that balance justifies atrocity." The Emperor's laughter echoed through the chamber. "I wonder, can such conviction be broken? Or can it be redirected. The game had changed. This was no longer about destroying an enemy. This was about understanding one. And if Thanos could be understood, perhaps he could be controlled. Or perhaps, Palpatine thought with dark amusement, he could be taught what true power looked like. The HoloNet transmission began simultaneously across 10,000 Imperial worlds. It bypassed encryption protocols, overrode military channels, and forced itself onto every public display from the core to the outer rim. For 3 minutes and 47 seconds, the Empire lost control of its own communications network. And in that time, the galaxy heard Thanos speak. He appeared not as a conqueror, but as a teacher. His massive form sat relaxed upon his throne, his expression grave but not cruel, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. Citizens of this galaxy, I am Thanos of Titan. I did not choose to come to your reality, but now that I am here, I cannot ignore what I see. Your galaxy is dying. The hologram shifted, showing statistical projections, population curves rising exponentially, resource depletion graphs trending toward collapse, famine predictions spreading across the outer rim. You possess 54 trillion souls spread across millions of worlds. Your population doubles every 73 years. Your resource consumption exceeds sustainability by 42%. Within 3 generations, your children will inherit not a galaxy of plenty, but a graveyard of extinct civilizations. Thanos leaned forward, and his eyes seemed to look directly through the screen at every viewer. I have seen this before, on my homeworld, on 100 others, civilizations that refused to act until action was impossible. They died, all of them, consumed by their own success. The hologram shifted again, showing images captured from Ryloth and Fondor, not of carnage, but of survivors, families reunited, children playing. Imperial officers returning to duty with haunted but living eyes. I do not offer you death, I offer you survival, half of all life removed randomly, without prejudice, without cruelty. The remainder will inherit a galaxy where resources are plentiful, where starvation is impossible, where your children's children can thrive rather than merely survive. His voice dropped to something almost gentle. This is not genocide. This is salvation. This is mercy. Your emperor rules through fear. He builds weapons to destroy planets, not to save them, but to control them. He hoards power while his citizens starve on forgotten worlds. He calls this order, I call this waste. Thanos stood, his full height filling the frame. I offer an alternative: surrender peacefully, accept the balance, and I will ensure that those who remain live in prosperity unknown in your history. I do not expect you to understand immediately. I do not expect you to accept willingly, but I promise you this: I will not stop until balance is achieved. Not because I am cruel, but because I am the only one with the will to save you from yourselves. I am inevitable. Resist if you must. But know that every day you delay, every battle you force me to fight, only increases the price of salvation. Choose wisely. The transmission ended. Silence fell across the galaxy. Then chaos. On Coruscant, riots broke out in the lower levels. Some demanded the Emperor surrender to save lives. Others screamed for Thanos' head. Philosophical debates raged in Senate chambers. Religious cults declared Thanos a prophet. Military hardliners called for total war. On Corellia, the entire planetary defense force mutinied when their commander ordered a preemptive strike against refugee ships fleeing Imperial space. Half the soldiers believed Thanos, half believed the Empire. The planet descended into civil war within hours. On Naboo, Queen's advisory councils debated in emergency session whether neutrality was possible. Could they declare themselves outside the conflict? Would Thanos honor such declarations? The mathematics suggested no. Neutral populations still counted toward the total. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Palpatine watched the chaos unfold with cold fascination. He has turned philosophy into a weapon, the Emperor murmured. More effective than any turbolaser. He offers them a choice between certain death and possible survival, between a tyranny they know and a salvation they fear. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Grand Moff Tarkin stood rigid with barely contained fury. "My lord, this is propaganda! Lies wrapped in mathematics. We must respond immediately, denounce his claims." "And say what, Tarkin?" Palpatine turned from the tactical displays, his yellow eyes gleaming. "That his numbers are wrong? They are not. Our projections confirm resource depletion within the timeline he described. That his solution is monstrous? Half the galaxy will see it as pragmatic. That the Empire offers better alternatives?" The Emperor's laugh was bitter. "We offer Star Destroyers and Stormtroopers. He offers survival." "Then we crush him before his message spreads further." "Too late. It has already spread." Palpatine gestured to the displays showing protests, debates, and conflicts erupting across Imperial space. "He has done in one transmission what the Rebel Alliance has failed to do in years. He has made people question the Empire's purpose. Not its methods, but its very reason for existing." "My lord," Admiral Piet's voice crackled through the comm, "we're receiving reports from the Rebellion. They've issued a statement denouncing Thanos as a threat equal to the Empire. Mon Mothma is calling for a united front against him." Palpatine's eyebrows rose. "The Rebellion sides with us? How unexpected, how telling." "They see him as the greater evil," Tarkin said. "As they should. We can use this, a temporary alliance against a common enemy." "No." Palpatine's refusal was sharp. "The Rebellion denounces Thanos because he threatens their moral superiority. They built their identity on being the righteous underdog, Timothy. Thanos claims to be more righteous, more willing to make hard choices. He exposes their idealism as weakness." The Emperor smiled coldly. "Let them flounder. Let them try to explain why sacrificing half to save half is wrong, while fighting a war that kills millions is right. Their hypocrisy will destroy them faster than we ever could." "And our response, my lord?" "We accelerate everything. The Death Star construction moves to maximum priority. Every shipyard, every resource, every worker. I want that weapon operational within 3 months, not 6. And we fortify Endor with the entire Imperial fleet." Palpatine's fingers drummed on his throne. "If Thanos wants the Death Star, he will have to go through me to get it." Aboard Sanctuary 2, Thanos watched the galaxy burn with quiet satisfaction. "The transmission has achieved its purpose," Ebony Maw reported. 17 systems have requested negotiations. 43 have declared martial law. Over 600 protests and civil disturbances have been reported across Imperial space. The Empire is fracturing. "Good. Chaos creates opportunity." Thanos studied the intelligence reports flowing in from captured Imperial databases. "But we must move quickly. The Emperor is not a fool. He will consolidate his power and turn the Death Star into an impregnable fortress." "Then we cannot take it by force," Corvus Glaive stated flatly. "Their fleet numbers in the thousands. Even with our advantages, we would be overwhelmed. Which is why we will not attack directly." Thanos pulled up a holographic star chart, his finger tracing supply routes leading toward the Endor system. "The Death Star requires constant supply shipments, Tabana gas for its reactor, kyber crystals for its weapon, food and water for its garrison. We will not assault the station, we will starve it." "A siege?" Proxima Midnight's expression was skeptical. "That could take months, years." "Then we ensure they do not have years." Thanos zoomed the display to show the secret routes and hidden construction facilities feeding the Death Star project. "Ma, I want every supply convoy intercepted, every shipment balanced, every facility sabotaged. We will bleed their logistics until the Death Star becomes a liability they cannot afford." "And when they respond with force?" "They already are." Thanos gestured to the tactical display showing Imperial fleet movements. "Darth Vader approaches with a task force. He seeks confrontation." "Let him have it." Gamora, who had been silent throughout the planning, finally spoke. "You're baiting him, using yourself as a target." "I am offering him the battle he craves. The Dark Lord believes in power through the Force, through personal strength. He will not resist the opportunity to face me directly." Thanos turned to his daughter, his expression softening slightly. "You disapprove. I think you're underestimating him. This force they speak of, it's not just telekinesis or mind tricks, it's something fundamental to this reality. What if it can hurt you? What if it's more dangerous than you believe? Then I will learn and adapt, as I always have." Thanos placed a hand on her shoulder. "Daughter, I have faced gods and emerged victorious. I have stared into cosmic infinity and not blinked. This Darth Vader is merely a man in armor who wields mystical powers. I respect his strength, but I do not fear it." "That's what worries me," Gamora whispered. "You never fear anything, not even when you should." Thanos smiled, a rare expression that almost reached his eyes. "Fear is the luxury of those who have something left to lose. I lost everything on Titan. I lost my world, my people, my chance to save them. I will not lose again, not here, not ever." He turned back to the displays, his moment of vulnerability passing. "Prepare the fleet. When Vader arrives, I will meet him in personal combat. Let this galaxy witness what happens when mysticism faces certainty. Let them see that the Force, for all its power, cannot alter mathematics." "And if you're wrong," Gamora asked quietly, "then you will complete the mission in my place. The Death Star must be seized or destroyed. Balance must be achieved, with or without me." Thanos' voice hardened into absolute resolve. "I am inevitable, daughter, but the mission is eternal." In the Outer Rim, aboard a battered rebel cruiser, Mon Mothma stood before the Alliance Council, her face grave. "This Thanos represents an existential threat unlike anything we have faced," she said. "The Empire is evil, yes, but it is an evil we understand. We know how to fight tyranny. We know how to inspire hope against oppression. But Thanos?" She gestured to the holographic recording of his transmission. "He offers no tyranny to rebel against. He offers salvation through genocide. He makes it sound reasonable." "Then we ally with the Empire?" a rebel commander asked, his voice thick with disgust. "Temporarily, tactically. We share intelligence on Thanos' movements. We coordinate defensive operations, but we do not trust them, and we do not forget what they are." Mon Mothma's eyes hardened. "We fight a war on two fronts now, against the Empire's tyranny and against Thanos' terrible mercy, and we pray that when this is over, there is still a galaxy left to save." In the deep darkness of space, Darth Vader's meditation chamber aboard the Executor was silent except for the rhythmic wheeze of his respirator. He sat in his pressurized pod, his mask removed, his scarred face exposed to the darkness. Through the Force, he reached out toward the void where Thanos existed, and this time he pushed deeper, harder, willing the cosmic energy to reveal the alien warlord's true nature. For a moment, there was nothing, then pain. Not the physical pain Vader knew intimately, but something worse, existential agony, the pain of watching everything you love die while knowing you could have prevented it. The pain of absolute certainty married to absolute powerlessness. The pain of being right when being right means accepting genocide as mathematics. Vader gasped and withdrew from the Force, his breathing ragged. He understood now. Thanos was not evil. Evil would have been simpler. Thanos was something far more dangerous. Thanos was traumatized, a being so broken by loss that he had constructed an entire philosophy to justify never feeling that helplessness again. And that made him more dangerous than any Sith Lord, because he genuinely believed his own justifications. "He is me," Vader whispered to the darkness, "before I embraced what I truly am. When I still pretended my actions served some higher purpose." The difference was that Vader had stopped lying to himself. He served the dark side because he was the dark side. No justifications, no philosophy, just power and pain and purpose. But Thanos? Thanos still believed he was saving people, and that delusion made him unstoppable. "Then I will break his certainty," Vader said, resealing his mask. "I will show him that his mathematics mean nothing against the Force. And when his philosophy crumbles, when he sees that balance is an illusion and mercy is a lie, Then, and only then, will he be ready to die. The Executor jumped to hyperspace, carrying the Dark Lord toward his confrontation with the Mad Titan. A confrontation that would shake the galaxy to its foundations. The abandoned mining colony on Mustafar's outer moon had been dead for decades. Automated systems shut down, facilities stripped of anything valuable, leaving only skeletal infrastructure floating in the shadow of the volcanic world below. It was worthless real estate in the Empire's vast holdings, which made it perfect for what was about to happen. Thanos had sent the coordinates directly to Darth Vader through captured Imperial channels. A challenge, an invitation, a promise of single combat between two warriors who had each, in their own way, transcended ordinary mortality. The Executor dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, flanked by two Imperial-class Star Destroyers. Vader stood on the bridge, his sensors detecting Sanctuary 2 already in position near the derelict moon, waiting, patient, confident. "Lord Vader," Admiral Pyatt spoke carefully, "this is obviously a trap. We should bombard the facility from orbit before—" "No." Vader's mechanical voice cut through the suggestion like a vibroblade. "He wants to meet me face to face, to test whether his philosophy can withstand the Force. I will indulge him." "But, my lord, the Emperor's orders were to assess and engage, not to risk yourself in personal combat." Vader turned, and though Pyatt couldn't see his eyes behind the mask, he felt the weight of the Dark Lord's displeasure like a physical force. "The Emperor trusts my judgment, as should you, Admiral. Hold position. If I do not return within 1 hour, you have permission to destroy everything on that moon, including me." Before Pyatt could protest further, Vader strode from the bridge toward the hangar bay where his personal shuttle waited. On the moon's surface, inside what had once been a primary ore processing facility, Thanos stood alone in a massive chamber whose ceiling stretched 100 meters overhead. Conveyor systems hung silent and still, smelting vats sat cold and empty. The only light came from the distant glow of Mustafar's volcanic surface, visible through cracked transparisteel viewports. "He comes," Ebony Maw's voice echoed from Thanos' comm unit. The Black Order waited aboard Sanctuary 2 as instructed. This confrontation had to be singular, personal, definitive. "Good." Thanos flexed his hands, feeling the familiar weight of his armor, the comfortable readiness of his body. No Infinity Stones, no cosmic weapons, just himself, his strength, his will, his certainty, against whatever this force truly was. The shuttle descended through the moon's thin atmosphere and landed in the facility's main bay. The ramp lowered and Darth Vader emerged alone, his cape billowing behind him, his respirator echoing through the dead facility like a mechanical heartbeat. He walked through corridors that had once held thousands of workers, passing empty control stations and abandoned equipment. Finally, he entered the processing chamber and saw his opponent waiting in the center, bathed in the red light from Mustafar below. For a long moment, neither spoke. They simply studied each other, two beings who had transcended their original forms through pain and purpose, now facing each other across an impossible gulf. Vader spoke first, his voice amplified by his mask's vocabulator. "You requested this meeting, Thanos. I am here. Speak your philosophy before I end you." "Philosophy is not spoken, Lord Vader. It is demonstrated." Thanos took a step forward, his boots echoing on the metal floor. "I have studied what little information your empire possesses about the Force. Mystical energy that flows through all living things, light and dark, balance and imbalance, very poetic." His expression hardened. "But poetry does not feed starving children. Mysticism does not prevent civilizational collapse. I came to offer you understanding before we fight." "I understand you perfectly." Vader's hand moved to his lightsaber hilt. "You are a zealot who has dressed his genocide in mathematical clothing. You are no different from the Jedi who believed their philosophy justified galactic manipulation, or the Sith who believe power justifies any action. You are simply another tyrant who thinks himself righteous." "And you?" Thanos countered. "What are you, Vader? A servant of an emperor who destroys planets to inspire fear? At least my culling serves a purpose beyond ego. I serve the dark side. I make no pretense of righteousness. Vader's lightsaber ignited, its red blade casting crimson shadows across the chamber. But you actually believe your own lies. That makes you more dangerous than any Sith, and more vulnerable. Then test your theory, Lord Vader. Thanos dropped into a combat stance, his fists raised. Show me this force that your galaxy worships. Prove to me that mysticism can defeat certainty. Vader didn't respond with words. He raised his hand, and the force erupted. A conveyor system the size of a transport ship ripped free from its moorings and hurtled toward Thanos with lethal velocity. The Mad Titan braced himself, catching the massive structure with his bare hands. Metal groaned and buckled under his grip, but his feet didn't budge. With a roar of effort, he twisted and hurled the conveyor back at Vader. The Dark Lord gestured and the conveyor split apart mid-flight, pieces scattering harmlessly to either side, but Thanos was already moving, closing the distance with shocking speed for someone his size. Vader swung his lightsaber in a precise killing arc. Thanos caught his wrist mid-strike with one massive hand. The plasma blade buzzed inches from Thanos' face, held in place by pure physical strength. Vader pushed with the Force, channeling darkside energy to enhance the blow. Thanos' arm trembled slightly but held firm. Impressive, Thanos growled, then headbutted Vader with skull-cracking force. The Dark Lord staggered backward, his helmet dented, his visual systems crackling with static. Before he could recover, Thanos' fist crashed into his chest plate with the force of a starship collision. Vader flew backward, smashing through a support pillar and sliding across the floor. Pain exploded through Vader's cybernetic body. Alarm screamed in his helmet. 2 ribs cracked. His respirator stuttered. But pain was old friend to Darth Vader. Pain was fuel. He rose to his feet, his breathing ragged, and unleashed Force lightning. Blue-white energy erupted from his fingertips, not as refined as his master's, but raw and furious. It struck Thanos full in the chest, and for the first time the Mad Titan showed pain. His muscles spasmed, his armor smoked. He dropped to one knee, teeth clenched against the agony, but he did not scream. Is that all? Thanos forced the words through the electrical storm ravaging his body. Is that the best your mysticism can offer? Vader poured more power into the lightning, drawing on his rage, his hatred, his endless reservoir of darkside energy. The entire chamber illuminated with crackling electricity. Thanos' skin began to char, his armor started to melt, and still the Mad Titan pushed forward. One step, then another, walking through the Force lightning as if wading through a storm, each step an act of pure will. Impossible, Vader breathed, his power faltering from shock. Mathematics, Thanos corrected and lunged. His hand closed around Vader's throat, lifting the Dark Lord off the ground. Lightning still crackled between them, but Thanos ignored it, ignored the pain, ignored everything except the man in his grip. Your force is powerful, Vader. I acknowledge that. But it requires focus, concentration, peace, or passion. Thanos squeezed, and Vader's respirator began to crack. I require only will, and my will is absolute. Vader struck back not with lightning, but with something deeper. He reached into the Force and pushed, not at Thanos' body, but at his mind. Sith mind techniques, honed over decades, designed to shatter resolve and break certainty. He showed Thanos a vision, Titan, whole and thriving, children playing in gardens, families laughing, resources abundant, a world saved not through culling, but through innovation, cooperation, hope. Everything Thanos believed impossible, rendered real through the Force's power. For an instant, just an instant, Thanos' grip faltered. You see, Vader rasped through his damaged respirator, your mathematics are not inevitable. There are other ways the Force can provide. Lies, Thanos roared, and the vision shattered. His grip tightened, and Vader's respirator shrieked in protest. I lived that hope. I preached those solutions. And I watched my world die because no one had the courage to act. Your force shows me fantasy, Vader, but mathematics shows me truth. He hurled Vader across the chamber with such force that the Dark Lord crashed through 3 walls before finally stopping, embedded in a structural support beam. Thanos stalked forward, his burned skin already beginning to heal through sheer Titan physiology. You sought to break my certainty with illusions, but I have already seen every alternative path. I explored them all on Titan. I begged my people to consider them, and they refused, again and again, until it was too late. Vader pulled himself from the wreckage, his armor sparking, his breathing labored. Through the Force, he could sense that Thanos was telling the truth. This being had genuinely exhausted every other option before arriving at genocide. That absolute conviction was both his greatest strength and his ultimate weakness. "Then you are beyond redemption," Vader said quietly, reigniting his lightsaber. "You have made yourself inevitable, a force of nature. But nature can be fought." "Can it?" Thanos gestured to Vader's damaged form. "Your force cannot heal you fast enough. Your mystical energy cannot match Titan's strength. And your philosophy, serving the dark side, embracing hatred, makes you predictable." "I have fought gods, Vader. You are merely a broken man in a machine." "Then let me show you," Vader replied, "what a broken man can do." The Force itself seemed to scream as Vader unleashed everything he had. The entire facility began to shake. Metal groaned, walls cracked. The ceiling started to collapse. Vader lifted every piece of debris, every machine, every structural element, and hurled it all at Thanos in a storm of industrial violence. Thanos stood at the center of the maelstrom, weathering the assault with arms raised, his body battered by tons of metal, his armor cracking, his skin bleeding, but he did not fall. He did not retreat. And slowly, impossibly, he began to laugh. "Yes," Thanos shouted over the chaos. "This is the power I needed to see, not your lightning parlor tricks or mind games. This, raw force, devastating potential." He caught a falling support beam with one hand, stopping its momentum dead. "This is what I will use when I claim the Death Star, this level of commitment, this willingness to destroy everything to achieve victory." Vader felt a cold realization settle over him. Thanos wasn't trying to win this fight. He was testing the limits of what he would face at Endor. Learning, adapting. "You used me," Vader said, his lightsaber lowering slightly. "I learned from you," Thanos corrected, dropping the beam. "And now I know the truth. Your force is powerful, Vader, but it is not infinite. You grow weaker with each exertion, your cybernetics fail under sustained damage, and most importantly," Thanos smiled grimly, "you fight for pride and power. I fight for salvation. Your motivations will falter. Mine never will." The ceiling finally gave way. Tons of structure collapsed toward both combatants. Vader gathered the Force to shield himself, but he was depleted, damaged, barely able to maintain the barrier. Thanos simply walked through the collapse, letting debris bounce off his armored form, heading toward the exit. "Our business here is concluded, Lord Vader," the Mad Titan called back. "Return to your Emperor. Tell him I have taken his measure. Tell him the Force, for all its mysticism, is merely another form of energy to be calculated and overcome. And tell him—" Thanos paused at the exit, his massive silhouette backlit by Mustafar's glow. "That when I sit upon his throne, I will use his Death Star to bring true balance to this galaxy. Half will die, half will live. And the survivors will know peace." He vanished into the corridors, leaving Vader buried in rubble, his armor failing, his body broken. It took the rescue team 20 minutes to extract him. By then, Sanctuary 2 was gone, jumping to hyperspace with intelligence about Imperial Force capabilities, Vader's combat limitations, and confirmation that no mystical power could simply overcome Thanos' absolute conviction. As they carried him back to the Executor, Vader replayed the fight in his mind. He had not lost because he was weaker. He had lost because Thanos had nothing left to lose, no fear of death, no doubt in his purpose, no hesitation in his conviction. Vader knew that mindset intimately. It was the same mindset that had made him Darth Vader, and that terrified him more than anything Thanos could have done in combat. The emergency session of the Imperial War Council convened aboard the Death Star 2, orbiting the forest moon of Endor. The station was only 60% complete, skeletal frameworks exposed to space, construction droids swarming like insects across its surface, and a super laser focusing dish that gleamed ominously even in its unfinished state. But it was operational enough to host the most critical military assembly in Imperial history. Emperor Palpatine sat at the head of the circular table, his hooded form seeming to absorb the light around him. To his right stood Darth Vader, freshly repaired but still bearing the dents and scorch marks from his encounter with Thanos, kept deliberately as a reminder. Around the table sat Grand Moff Tarkin, Admiral Payet, General Veers Madait, and a dozen other high-ranking commanders who had never before seen fear in the Dark Lord's posture. "Lord Vader," Palpatine's voice was deceptively soft. "Tell them what you learned." Vader's respirator wheezed 3 times before he spoke. "Thanos is not what we anticipated. His strength rivals that of Force-enhanced beings. His durability exceeds any biological creature I have encountered. Force lightning causes him pain but does not incapacitate. Telekinetic attacks can move him but cannot easily overcome his mass and will." A pause. "Most critically, he feels no fear, no doubt, no hesitation. He is absolute in his conviction." "Can he be killed?" Tarkin asked bluntly. "Yes, but not easily. Concentrated turbolaser fire, sustained bombardment, or the Death Star's superlaser would destroy him. But reaching him with such weapons requires him to remain stationary long enough to target." Vader's hands clenched. "He will not. He is tactically brilliant and uses his forces to maximum efficiency." Palpatine leaned forward slightly. "And his Black Order?" 4 elite warriors, each with unique capabilities. Ebony Maw possesses telekinetic powers comparable to advanced Force users, though he channels them differently, more mechanical, less intuitive. Corvus Glaive is a master strategist with a weapon that disrupts energy shields. Proxima Midnight demonstrates combat prowess exceeding elite Imperial guards. Cull Obsidian is a brute force asset, nearly unstoppable in close combat. And his army? Diminished by the dimensional crossing but still formidable, Chitauri shock troops number in the thousands, disciplined, fearless, and equipped with energy weapons that penetrate standard stormtrooper armor. His Outrider bioweapons do not register on conventional life sign scanners, making them ideal infiltration assets. Vader's voice dropped. "They nearly breached the Executor's shields during my extraction. Only rapid hyperspace jump prevented boarding." The council chamber fell silent. These were men and women accustomed to overwhelming military superiority, to enemies who crumbled before Imperial might. Thanos represented something they had never faced, an enemy who matched their strength and exceeded their conviction. "Then we are agreed," Palpatine said, his tone suggesting the matter had been decided long before this meeting. "Thanos must be lured to the Death Star and destroyed here, where we control the battlefield." "My lord," Admiral Piet ventured carefully, "he has already stated his intention to claim this station. We are giving him exactly what he wants." "Yes." Palpatine's smile was a terrible thing. "But wanting and taking are very different things. He believes the Death Star is a weapon. He does not yet understand it is also a trap." The Emperor gestured and holographic displays illuminated around the table, showing the Endor system's defensive arrangements. The Executor and the entire Death Squadron, 20 Star Destroyers, will maintain permanent orbit around the station. Interdictor cruisers will generate gravity wells preventing hyperspace escape. Ion cannons will disable any ship attempting to flee, and the station itself— Palpatine's eyes gleamed with dark satisfaction. "Will have its superlaser operational within 6 weeks. Targeting systems will be calibrated for ship-to-ship combat, not merely planetary destruction." General Veers studied the deployment. A fortress approach, every attack vector covered, every escape route blocked. But my lord, if Thanos has been intercepting our supply convoys— He has, Vader confirmed. 14 shipments destroyed in the past 2 weeks. Always the same pattern: half the cargo destroyed, half seized. Half the crews killed, half allowed to escape and spread his message. Then he knows our supply routes, he knows our construction timeline. Tarkin's voice was grim. He is orchestrating a siege. Let him. Palpatine stood, his presence dominating the chamber. We have stockpiled 6 months of supplies on Endor's surface. The shield generator protecting this station is powered by the moon's geothermal energy, unlimited and untouchable from orbit, and most importantly— The Emperor raised one withered hand and force lightning crackled between his fingers. I will be here personally. When Thanos comes for his prize, he will face not just the Imperial military, but the full power of the dark side. My master, Vader spoke carefully, I recommend caution. Thanos showed no vulnerability to force manipulation. His mind is a fortress built on trauma and false certainty, I know. Palpatine's smile widened. Which makes it all the more satisfying when I break it. You attacked his philosophy with logic, Vader. You showed him alternatives. But philosophy is not defeated by alternatives, it is defeated by consequences. The Emperor's voice dropped to a whisper. I will show him what happens when his precious mathematics meet the reality of the Force, when his certainty crumbles, when his balance becomes chaos. Outside the conference chamber, in a shadowed corridor, 2 stormtroopers stood guard. They had been stationed there for hours, listening to the muffled voices of the Empire's leadership debating strategy against an alien warlord. What they didn't know was that one of them wasn't a stormtrooper at all. The figure waited until the patrol passed, then slipped away from his post and into a maintenance shaft. Once hidden from surveillance, the armor unsealed, revealing purple skin, a ridged chin, and eyes that burned with purpose. Thanos had not sent spies to Endor. He had sent himself. The infiltration had been audacious to the point of insanity. Ebony Maw had used his telekinetic powers to manipulate Imperial personnel rosters, inserting Thanos' biometric data under a false identity. The Mad Titan had then allowed himself to be conscripted in a manufactured transfer order, joining a supply convoy bound for the Death Star as a replacement trooper. For 3 days he had stood guard duty, cleaned corridors, listened, learned, mapped every section of the station he could access, memorizing layouts, noting weak points, studying personnel patterns. The Empire was so confident in its security, so assured of its technological supremacy, that it never considered someone might infiltrate the Death Star not with stealth but with paperwork. Now, moving through the maintenance shafts with the ease of someone who had spent decades navigating complex facilities, Thanos made his way toward the station's reactor core. Not to sabotage it, not yet, but to understand it. To see firsthand the engineering marvel that powered a weapon capable of destroying planets. He emerged in a secondary observation deck overlooking the primary reactor shaft. The hypermatter reactor pulsed with barely contained energy, a miniature sun held in magnetic suspension, its power feeding the station's systems, and, when complete, the superlaser that made the Death Star the ultimate instrument of mass extinction. Beautiful, Thanos whispered, studying the reactor's configuration with an engineer's appreciation. The Empire had built something extraordinary here, not just a weapon, but a statement, the pinnacle of technological achievement dedicated to destruction. And they were right to build it, Thanos thought. They simply lacked the vision to use it properly. A weapon this powerful should not be wasted on fear and intimidation. It should serve salvation. One planet destroyed, billions saved from the slow death of starvation. 2 planets destroyed, trillions spared the collapse of civilization. The mathematics were elegant, the morality was simple. Take the weapon, use it properly, balance the galaxy. Admiring the view? Thanos spun, hand moving instinctively toward the blaster at his hip. Standing in the observation deck's entrance was a figure he had not anticipated encountering. A young man in simple mechanics coveralls, human, perhaps mid-20s, with an oil-stained face and curious eyes. Just appreciating the engineering, Thanos replied, keeping his voice neutral, his accent carefully masked to match Imperial core worlders. The mechanic nodded, moving to stand beside him at the observation window. Yeah, it's something else. My third time working on one of these stations. First Death Star, Tarkin got me off before, well, you know. Now they got me back here, building an even bigger one. He laughed bitterly. Like the first one worked out so well. Thanos studied the man carefully. You sound less than enthusiastic about the Empire's greatest achievement. Greatest achievement? The mechanic's laugh was harsh. You know how many people died building this thing? Not from rebel attacks, from accidents, overwork, deliberate motivation techniques when construction fell behind schedule. I've seen men welded alive into hull sections because the foreman couldn't be bothered to wait for proper safety protocols. He gestured at the reactor. We're building a machine to blow up planets while Imperial worlds in the Outer Rim starve because supply ships get diverted to military projects. Where's the achievement in that? Then why stay? Thanos asked, genuinely curious. Why continue to serve? The mechanic shrugged. Where else would I go? Join the rebellion? They'd just blow this thing up with me on it eventually. At least here, I get paid, I get fed, I survive. He glanced at Thanos. You're new? First assignment to Death Squadron? Yes. Word of advice, keep your head down, follow orders, don't think too hard about what we're building or why. The Empire doesn't care about your opinions. It cares about your obedience. The mechanic started toward the exit, then paused. And stay away from the detention level. They brought someone in yesterday, rebel sympathizer from Fonder who survived that Thanos attack. Poor bastard's been screaming for hours while the interrogators work on him. Rumor is they're trying to learn what deal he made to survive. After the mechanic left, Thanos remained at the observation window, his expression thoughtful. The Empire had built the ultimate weapon, but it had no philosophy to guide its use. It killed to inspire fear, not to achieve balance. It burned resources on military might while its citizens suffered. And worst of all, it inspired no loyalty, only obedience born from lack of alternatives. Thanos had always believed that salvation would be resisted. That was the nature of mercy. Those being saved rarely understood they needed saving until it was done. But he had also believed that once balance was achieved, the survivors would recognize the gift they had been given. The Empire proved otherwise. Even those who survived its mercy hated it. Because the Empire offered no purpose beyond power, no meaning beyond control. When Thanos seized this station, when he used it to balance the galaxy, he would need to offer something the Empire never had, a reason to believe. Not in him necessarily, but in the mathematics, in the certainty that sacrifice today meant survival tomorrow. Philosophy without power was useless, but power without philosophy was tyranny. He needed both. A comm alert chirped in his stolen helmet. Shift change. He had to return to his post before the absence was noticed. As Thanos navigated back through the maintenance shafts, his mind worked through calculations. The Death Star would be operational in 6 weeks. The Imperial fleet would make assault nearly impossible. But if he could sabotage the shield generator on Endor's surface, create a window of vulnerability, no, too obvious, Vader would anticipate that strategy. He needed something unexpected. Something that exploited not the Death Star's technological weaknesses, but the Empire's philosophical ones. By the time Thanos returned to his guard post, resuming the role of anonymous stormtrooper, his plan was formed. Not an assault, not a siege, a conversion. He would not take the Death Star by force. He would take it by offering its crew what the Empire never had, a choice, a reason to believe. A mathematics of salvation that made more sense than the mathematics of fear. And if they refused, then he would demonstrate, one final time, what happened when philosophy met inevitability. Mon Mothma had never expected to find herself on the same side as the Galactic Empire, yet here she stood in an encrypted holographic conference with Imperial officers, rebel commanders, and independent sector representatives, all united by a single horrifying realization. Thanos was winning. The holographic chamber aboard the Rebel flagship Home 1 projected images from across the galaxy. Admiral Akbar stood to Mon Mothma's left, his amphibious features drawn in concern. To her right, General Medine reviewed casualty reports that grew worse by the hour, and floating in holographic form before them all was an unexpected presence, Grand Moff Tarkin, transmitted from the Death Star itself. "The situation is untenable," Tarkin stated with characteristic bluntness. "Thanos has destroyed or seized 17 major supply convoys in the past month. 12 Imperial installations have been balanced. Population centers on 43 worlds are in open revolt, some demanding the Empire surrender to Thanos, others calling for total war. The HoloNet is flooded with his philosophy. We are losing control not through military defeat but through ideological contamination." "The rebellion faces similar challenges," Mon Mothma admitted, the words bitter on her tongue. "3 of our cells have defected, not to the Empire but to Thanos. They claim his mathematics are more honest than our idealism. That sacrifice of half is preferable to decades of war that kills millions slowly." She paused, struggling with the admission. "They may not be wrong." "That is exactly the trap he has set," Admiral Akbar interjected, his voice sharp. "Thanos offers certainty in an uncertain galaxy, simple mathematics to replace complex morality. It is seductive precisely because it removes the burden of choice. Half die randomly, half live randomly. No one is responsible. No one must make impossible decisions." "Except him," General Medine added darkly. "He takes all responsibility, all guilt, all moral weight, and in doing so he makes himself inevitable. How do you fight someone who genuinely believes they are saving you?" Tarkin's holographic form leaned forward. "By demonstrating that his certainty is false, that his mathematics do not account for the one variable he cannot calculate, the Force." "You mean your Emperor," Mon Mothma said coldly. "You want us to trust that Palpatine can stop Thanos when your own Darth Vader could not." "Lord Vader tested Thanos' physical capabilities. He confirmed that the alien can be hurt, can be killed, but requires overwhelming force to eliminate." Tarkin's expression was grim. "The Emperor represents overwhelming force. When Thanos comes for the Death Star, and he will, Palpatine will be waiting. The question is whether your rebellion will assist in the defense or stand aside while Thanos seizes the Empire's ultimate weapon." The chamber fell silent. Every rebel commander present understood the impossible choice before them. Assist the Empire and they betrayed everything the rebellion stood for. Stand aside and Thanos would possess a weapon capable of destroying the entire galaxy, world by world, in his quest for balance. "There is a third option," a new voice spoke from the shadows of the chamber. All eyes turned as a cloaked figure stepped forward. Princess Leia Organa, recently escaped from Imperial custody, her presence on Home 1 still classified to all but the highest rebel leadership. "We use this moment to destroy both threats simultaneously," Leia continued, her voice carrying the steel of someone who had watched her homeworld die. "Thanos wants the Death Star. The Emperor will defend it with everything he has. Let them fight. And while they tear each other apart, we strike at both." "Explain," Mon Mothma commanded. Leia gestured and a tactical hologram of the Endor system materialized. "The Empire has concentrated its forces around the Death Star, the Executor, 20 Star Destroyers, the Emperor himself. This leaves dozens of systems vulnerable. While Thanos and Palpatine are locked in confrontation, we hit Imperial installations across the Mid-Rim. We liberate worlds, seize supplies, turn the galaxy against both tyrants." "And if Thanos wins?" Akbar asked. "If he claims the Death Star?" "Then we destroy it," Leia replied simply. "The same way we destroyed the first one. Exploit the weakness, strike the reactor, eliminate the threat." Her eyes hardened. "I don't care if it's the Emperor or Thanos pulling the trigger. That weapon cannot be allowed to exist." Tarkin's hologram flickered with what might have been respect. "Bold, reckless, typical rebel thinking. But the Death Star has no weakness this time, Princess. The reactor is shielded, the exhaust ports are reinforced. and the shield generator on Endor is protected by an entire legion of the Emperor's finest troops. Every weapon has a weakness, Leia countered. We just need to find it. Or create it, Mon Mothma added thoughtfully. If Thanos truly wants to seize the Death Star rather than destroy it, perhaps we can assist him, not openly, but strategically, feed him intelligence, create openings, allow him to weaken the Empire enough that when we strike, both threats are eliminated. You would ally with Thanos? Madine's voice was shocked. I would use him as he would use us. Mon Mothma's expression was troubled but resolute. I do not like it. It violates every principle the rebellion was founded upon. But if it prevents a galaxy-wide genocide, whether by the Emperor's hand or Thanos's, then it is a price I am willing to pay. The holographic conference dissolved into argument. Some commanders saw the logic, others saw only moral compromise, and through it all, Tarkin watched with calculating eyes, transmitting every word back to his Emperor. On Endor's surface, in the bunker housing the shield generator that protected the Death Star, a different conversation was taking place. Commander Jerjerrod, the Death Star's commanding officer, stood before a tactical display with increasing frustration. The perimeter is secure. We have ATSTs patrolling every approach vector, sensor nets cover the entire forest, speeder bike squadrons run constant reconnaissance. Nothing gets within 5 kilometers without detection. And yet, Darth Vader's mechanical voice responded, you cannot account for 73 personnel reassignments in the past week. Transfers that appeared legitimate but cannot be traced to their origin orders. Jerjerrod paled. My lord, I assure you every transfer is verified through Imperial command channels, which Thanos has demonstrated he can manipulate. Vader turned from the display, his presence overwhelming in the cramped command center. He infiltrated this station once already. We detected his presence only after he departed, leaving no trace except manipulated personnel records. He could be here now, any stormtrooper, any officer, any mechanic. That's impossible. We have biometric scans and voice identification, all of which can be falsified by his Ebony Maw's telekinetic manipulation of technology. Vader's fist clenched. We are not fighting a conventional enemy, Commander. We are fighting someone who thinks in dimensions we have not considered. He does not simply attack, he infiltrates, subverts, converts. Then what do you suggest, my lord? Vader was silent for a long moment. Through the Force he could sense something, a disturbance, not a presence but an absence, a void moving through the Force like a shadow through light. It was distant but growing closer. Lockdown, Vader commanded. Total communications blackout, no transfers in or out. Anyone attempting to leave is detained for interrogation, and increased patrols around the shield generator. If Thanos cannot seize the Death Star through infiltration, he will attempt to create vulnerability through sabotage. At once, my lord. As Jerjerrod hurried to implement the orders, Vader remained at the tactical display, staring at the holographic representation of the Death Star hanging in orbit above. Somewhere on that station, he was certain now, Thanos was preparing his next move. But what move? That was the question that haunted Vader. Thanos had shown tactical brilliance, yes, but also patience. He struck when victory was certain, retreated when the cost grew too high. He was not reckless, he was methodical. Which meant this entire situation, the siege, the propaganda, the scattered attacks, was merely preparation. Thanos was building towards something, a moment of perfect balance where all variables aligned in his favor. Vader needed to disrupt that balance before the moment arrived. Aboard Sanctuary 2, hidden in the asteroid field at the Endor system's edge, Thanos stood before his assembled Black Order and reviewed the final preparations. The Empire expects a siege. They have fortified the Death Star with their entire fleet. They believe overwhelming force will deter us. Thanos smiled grimly. They are correct. We cannot take the station by force, not while the Emperor himself defends it. Then how, my lord? Proxima Midnight asked, her spear resting across her shoulders. by giving them exactly what they want. Thanos activated a holographic display showing the Death Star's construction status. In 2 weeks, the super laser will be operational. The moment it activates, the Empire will believe themselves invincible. They will lower their guard, if only psychologically. That is when we strike. 2 weeks, Corvus Glaive mused. The Empire will be at maximum readiness, every defense active, every ship crewed and prepared. Yes, which is why we will not attack the Death Star. Thanos zoomed the display to show Endor's forest moon. We attack the shield generator, not to destroy it, to seize it. Once we control the shield, we control access to the station. The Empire will be forced to either surrender the Death Star or watch it remain protected but useless, unable to fire without lowering shields. A hostage scenario, Ebony Maw said approvingly. Elegant, but insufficient. Thanos turned to face his most loyal servants. Which is why, simultaneously, I will be aboard the Death Star itself, having infiltrated as crew. When the shield generator falls and chaos ensues, I will broadcast one final message to every Imperial soldier and officer on that station. What message? Gamora asked quietly. She had been silent throughout the planning, her expression troubled. Thanos met her gaze. A choice. Serve an emperor who uses fear to control, or serve a vision that uses mathematics to save. Remain loyal to tyranny or embrace balance. Those who choose wisely will be spared, those who resist. He let the sentence hang. You are offering them conversion, Gamora said. You believe you can turn the Empire's own soldiers against their emperor. I believe that when faced with certainty and given genuine choice, most beings choose survival over loyalty to corrupt philosophy. The Empire has never offered its people anything but obedience. I will offer them purpose. And if they refuse, then they are balanced, as all things must be. Cull Obsidian growled his approval, his chain hammer scraping against the deck. Proxima grinned with anticipation. Corvus simply nodded, already calculating logistics. Only Ebony Maw seemed thoughtful. My lord, this plan requires us to divide our forces. You aboard the station, the Black Order assaulting the surface. If either attack fails, then we adapt, as we always have. Thanos placed a hand on Maw's shoulder. You have served me faithfully for decades. You have watched me plan and execute operations across thousands of worlds. Have I ever led you into defeat? No, my lord. Then trust me now. The Empire believes they are fighting an alien warlord. They do not yet understand they are fighting an idea, and ideas once planted cannot be bombed from orbit or shot with turbolasers. They grow, they spread. They become inevitable. Thanos returned his gaze to the holographic Death Star, hanging like a mechanical moon in its construction frame. Soon that weapon would be his, not through violence but through conversion, not through force but through philosophy. The Emperor would learn that the dark side, for all its power, could not compete with mathematics, and the galaxy would learn that balance, once achieved, was irreversible. The day the Death Star's super laser achieved operational status, the galaxy held its breath. Emperor Palpatine stood in the throne room aboard the battle station, his withered hands resting on his throne's armrests, yellow eyes gleaming with dark satisfaction. Before him floated holographic displays showing the weapon's successful test firing. An uninhabited moon in a neighboring system vaporized in a single blast. Perfect precision, perfect power, perfect terror. Magnificent, the Emperor whispered. Lord Vader, transmit the demonstration to all Imperial channels. Let the galaxies see what awaits those who harbor thoughts of resistance. Darth Vader stood at the viewport overlooking Endor's forest moon, his posture rigid with tension. My master, I sense a disturbance. Something approaches. Thanos. Palpatine's smile widened. Right on schedule. He could not resist. The moment we demonstrated the weapon's completion, he would be drawn to it like a moth to flame. The Emperor rose from his throne, force lightning already crackling between his fingers. Excellent. Let him come. Let him throw his philosophy against the reality of unlimited power, Today, he learns that mathematics mean nothing against the dark side. On the forest moon's surface, the assault began with terrifying efficiency. Outriders erupted from the undergrowth like a biological tidal wave, thousands of the four-legged bioweapons swarming toward the shield generator bunker from every direction simultaneously. AT-ST walkers opened fire, blaster cannons tearing through the creatures, but for every outrider that fell, 3 more took its place. They didn't feel pain, they didn't retreat, they simply consumed everything in their path. "All units fall back to secondary perimeter," Commander Gergerod's voice crackled through helmet comms. "Get those blast doors sealed." But the Outriders were merely the first wave. Proxima Midnight descended from the trees like a vengeful spirit, her triple-bladed spear spinning in arcs of blue energy. She hit the stormtrooper defensive line like a lance through armor, cutting through dozen troopers before they could react. Behind her came Shitori's shock troops, their energy weapons firing with disciplined precision, pushing the Imperials back toward the bunker entrance. And then the sky itself seemed to tear open. Corvus Glaive's dropship crashed through the forest canopy, his glaive weapon already humming with power. The moment he touched ground, he launched himself at the nearest AT-ST, his blade cutting through the walker's armored cockpit as if it were paper. The pilot died before his scream could finish. "Protect the generator," Gergerod screamed into his comm. "Vader, we need reinforcements." "Reinforcements are not coming," a cultured voice spoke from impossible directions. Ebony Maw floated down from the trees, his robes billowing, debris and corpses orbiting him in a grotesque telekinetic display. With a gesture, he ripped the blast doors from their hinges and hurled them into the retreating stormtroopers, crushing a dozen men beneath tons of durasteel. "Your Emperor has abandoned you to focus on the Death Star," Maw continued, drifting toward the bunker entrance. "He values his weapon more than your lives. My master, by contrast, values balance. Surrender the generator and half of you will live to see tomorrow. Resist and mathematics will determine your survival randomly." "We don't negotiate with terrorists!" Gergerod fired his blaster. The bolt stopped mid-air, frozen by Maw's telekinesis, then reversed direction and destroyed the commander's weapon. "That is unfortunate," Maw said almost sadly. "For you." The battle for the shield generator lasted 17 brutal minutes. The Black Order tore through Imperial defenses with coordinated savagery. Proxima's speed, Corvus's tactics, Cull Obsidian's raw power, and Maw's terrifying telekinetic control. Stormtroopers fell by the dozens, AT-STs collapsed into burning wrecks, and slowly, inevitably, the bunker's defenses crumbled. When Gergerod finally fell, a spear through his chest, Corvus Glaive stood over the generator controls. "It is done. The shield is ours." Above, in orbit, alarm klaxons screamed across the Death Star. "Lord Vader!" An officer's voice was panicked. "The shield has fallen. We're reading multiple breaches. They've seized the generator." Vader's hands clenched. "Raise the station's shields. Prepare all weapons. If the planetary shield is compromised, we defend ourselves directly." "My lord, there's more." The officer's voice went quieter, more terrified. "We're receiving reports of a transmission. It's broadcasting on all internal frequencies, coming from inside the station." Vader felt ice crystallize in his veins. "Where?" "Everywhere, my lord. Every corridor, every barracks, every command center. It's..." Thanos' image appeared on every screen throughout the Death Star, not in his armor, but in the uniform of an Imperial naval officer, a disguise he had worn for weeks. Walking among the crew, learning their fears, understanding their doubts. When he spoke, his voice was calm, reasonable, and absolutely certain. "Officers and crew of the Death Star, I am Thanos. Many of you have heard my name spoken with fear. Some of you have lost comrades to my campaign. I do not apologize for those deaths. They were necessary, they were balanced, and now I offer you a choice that your Emperor has never given you." The camera perspective shifted, showing Thanos standing in the Death Star's main reactor observation deck, the heart of the station surrounded by the pulsing hypermatter reactor that powered the weapon. "Your planetary shield is now under my control. Your Emperor sits in his throne room plotting how to retake it. Lord Vader prepares for battle. And you, all of you, are caught between two philosophies of power. Thanos' expression softened slightly. I have walked among you these past weeks. I have listened to your conversations, your fears, your doubts. You serve not because you believe in the Empire, but because you fear the alternative. On the bridge, officers exchanged uncertain glances. In the barracks, stormtroopers hesitated, weapons half raised. In engineering sections, technicians stopped working, captivated by the alien warlord's words. I offer you an alternative now, not surrender, not subjugation, but purpose. Thanos gestured to the reactor behind him. This weapon you have built, this Death Star, represents the pinnacle of destructive capability. It can eliminate billions with a single shot. Your Emperor uses it to inspire fear. I would use it to achieve balance, to cull overpopulated systems not as punishment but as salvation, to ensure that the galaxy's resources can sustain those who remain. Your Emperor offers you only continued service to tyranny. I offer you participation in saving this galaxy from its own excesses. Thanos' voice intensified. But I will not force you. That is the difference between his philosophy and mine. He demands obedience. I ask for understanding. So choose now. Those who wish to serve balance, lay down your weapons and remain at your posts. You will become crew of a weapon used for salvation rather than terror. Those who wish to remain loyal to the Empire, take up arms and fight. Half of you will die, half will live, as all things must be. You have 5 minutes to decide. The transmission ended. Silence fell across the Death Star like a suffocating blanket. Then in a barracks on level 47, a single stormtrooper removed his helmet and placed his blaster on the ground. I'm done, he said quietly. I watched the Empire destroy Alderaan, billions dead to make a point. If this alien is offering a mathematical alternative instead of casual genocide, maybe it's worth listening to. That's treason, another trooper said, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? Or is blind loyalty to an emperor who sees us as expendable the real treason? The first trooper looked around at his squad mates. We all saw what happened at Fondor. Half died, half lived. Random. No politics, no corruption, no favoritism, just mathematics. Cold but fair. Similar conversations erupted across the station. In some sections, officers shot the first person to suggest surrender. In others, entire crews debated philosophy while Vader and the Emperor waited for the battle that should have already begun. In the throne room, Palpatine felt the disturbance rippling through the Force, doubt spreading like a virus through his carefully controlled military machine. Clever, the Emperor hissed. He does not attack from without. He attacks from within. Subversion, conversion, philosophy as a weapon. Force lightning crackled around Palpatine's hands. Lord Vader, find him! Kill him! End this before… Before what, my master? Vader's voice was hollow. Before we discover how many of our own soldiers prefer his mathematics to your tyranny? Before we learn that fear alone is not enough to maintain an empire? Palpatine's yellow eyes snapped to his apprentice. You doubt? I doubt nothing. I merely observe truth. Vader turned from the viewport. Thanos has done what the rebellion never could. He has made our own people question their purpose. Not through inspirational speeches about freedom and hope, but through cold logic, through certainty, through the promise that their deaths, if they come, will at least serve a rational goal. Then they are fools, Palpatine snarled. And you will demonstrate what happens to fools who believe alien promises. Throughout the Death Star, the 5 minutes expired. Approximately 40% of the crew had laid down weapons, 30% remained loyal, 30% were undecided, watching, waiting to see which philosophy would prove stronger. Thanos emerged from the reactor observation deck, walking calmly through corridors where stormtroopers parted before him, some saluting, some tracking him with weapons but not firing, all uncertain. He made his way to the throne room deliberately, knowing Vader and the Emperor would be waiting. This was always how it would end, not with fleets and armies, but with three beings whose philosophies could not coexist, forced into final confrontation. The throne room doors opened. Thanos entered alone, his armor gleaming in the dim red light, his expression calm. Emperor Palpatine sat upon his throne, force lightning dancing between his fingertips. Bold of you to come here. Foolish, but bold. Darth Vader stood to the Emperor's right, lightsaber already ignited, his respirator the only sound in the chamber's terrible silence. Thanos stopped 10 meters from the throne and inclined his head respectfully. Emperor, Lord Vader, I come not as conqueror, but as liberator. Surrender this station peacefully, and I will allow you both to live. Resist, and you join the half who must be balanced. Palpatine's laughter echoed through the chamber. You think you have won because some frightened soldiers laid down their weapons? You understand nothing. This station is powered by the Force, controlled by the Force, and you... The Emperor leaned forward, his presence in the Force suddenly overwhelming. Are nothing but absence, a void where life should be, a mathematical error in a universe governed by energy and will. Then demonstrate that will, Emperor. Thanos dropped into a combat stance. Show me what the Force can do against certainty. With pleasure. The Emperor rose from his throne, and the dark side itself seemed to scream. Force lightning erupted from Palpatine's hands with such intensity that the air itself ignited. Pure dark side energy, refined over decades of Sith mastery, channeled through unlimited hatred and amplified by the Death Star's nexus of fear and suffering. It was not merely electricity, it was the very essence of pain given form, powerful enough to atomize a living being in seconds. Thanos raised his arms and absorbed the assault. His body convulsed, his armor smoked and cracked, his skin charred beneath the onslaught, but he did not fall. Through sheer Titan physiology and absolute willpower, he walked forward, each step an act of defiance against the most powerful darkseid user in the galaxy. Impossible! Palpatine's voice lost its composure as he poured more power into the attack. The throne room's lights shattered, consoles exploded. The very walls began to crack from the energy discharge. Nothing should withstand this. Nothing. I endured, watching my world die. Thanos forced the words through clenched teeth. While I had the solution, and none would listen. Your lightning is pain. Pain I know intimately. Vader moved then, his lightsaber a blur of crimson fury. He struck at Thanos' exposed flank with killing intent. The plasma blade aimed for the gap between armor plates where flesh was vulnerable. Thanos caught the lightsaber bare-handed. His palm sizzled and burned, the molecular disruption of the blade cutting through even Titan flesh. But his grip held. Through the pain, through the impossible physics of containing a lightsaber's plasma, Thanos held firm and looked Vader directly in his masked face and... I felt your pain on Mustafar's moon, Thanos said, his voice steady despite the agony. The loss of everything, the transformation from man to machine, the certainty that you must continue because stopping means admitting it was all for nothing. His grip tightened on the blade. We are alike, Vader. Both of us broken, both of us certain. The only difference is that I still believe my suffering serves a purpose. Then you are weaker than I thought, Vader replied, and called upon the Force in a way he rarely did, not with lightning or telekinesis, but with pure crushing pressure. The Force itself compressed around Thanos like an invisible vice, attempting to collapse his lungs, rupture his organs, shatter his bones from within. It was the technique Vader used to execute incompetent officers, amplified 1,000-fold. Thanos' knees buckled. Blood ran from his nose and ears. His grip on the lightsaber faltered, and still he smiled. You still don't understand, Thanos gasped. I don't need to defeat you both. I just need to prove my philosophy is stronger than yours. He released the lightsaber and lunged forward, not at Vader or the Emperor, but at the throne room's main console. His burned hand slammed down on the controls and his voice transmitted throughout the entire Death Star. All crew, this is Thanos. Witness what your Emperor does when challenged. Watch as he kills me with mystical power while claiming to serve order. Ask yourselves, does this look like governance? Or does this look like a tyrant defending his right to kill planets? Palpatine's rage exploded. The Force lightning intensified beyond anything witnessed before. Thanos' armor shattered completely. His flesh began to vaporize. He collapsed to one knee, then both, his massive form finally yielding to the overwhelming dark-side assault. But on every screen throughout the Death Star, Imperial personnel watched their Emperor torture an unarmed opponent with sadistic pleasure. They watched Vader stand by complicit, and they remembered Thanos' words about choice, about balance, about purpose. "End transmission!" Palpatine screamed. "Cannot, my lord!" A technician's voice crackled through the comm. "He's hardwired it into the reactor. Only way to stop it is to shut down main power. Then shut it down." "That would disable the shields, my lord, with the planetary shield already down." The Emperor's moment of hesitation was all Thanos needed. He had never intended to win this fight through strength. He had intended to win it through witness, through documentation, through turning the Emperor's own power into evidence of tyranny. With his last reserves of strength, Thanos spoke into the transmission one final time. "I came to save you. Your Emperor only wants to rule you. Choose." Then the Force lightning finally overcame even Titan durability. Thanos collapsed, his body smoking, unconscious but somehow impossibly still alive. Palpatine stood over him, chest heaving, yellow eyes blazing with frustrated fury. "Vader, kill him now!" But Vader did not move. His lightsaber remained ignited but lowered. Through the Force, he felt something unprecedented. The crew of the Death Star wavering, not in fear of Thanos, but in doubt about the Empire itself. "My master," Vader spoke carefully, "if I execute him now, we validate his narrative. We confirm that we rule through power alone, without philosophy or purpose. I do not care what these fools believe." Palpatine's voice was raw with rage. "I care that they obey." "And if they do not?" Vader gestured to the console where status reports flooded in. 70% of the crew has now laid down weapons. They are not attacking us, not sabotaging, simply refusing to fight for us, refusing to fight against Thanos. They have chosen neutrality. "There is no neutrality." Palpatine's hands crackled with renewed lightning. "There is only power, and those too weak to seek it." "Then demonstrate that power, my master. Kill every crew member who doubts. Slaughter thousands to maintain control." Vader's voice dropped to a whisper. "But when you are finished, you will rule a Death Star crewed by corpses, protected by nothing, vulnerable to every rebel fleet in the galaxy." For the first time in decades, Emperor Palpatine faced a problem that unlimited power could not solve. He had built an empire on fear, maintained it through strength, and defended it with the dark side. But Thanos had exposed the fundamental weakness of that philosophy. Fear only worked if people valued their lives more than their principles. And Thanos had given them a principle worth dying for. Not freedom, not hope, but certainty. Mathematical, inevitable, fair certainty. "Bring him to the detention level," Palpatine finally commanded, his voice cold. "Seal him in carbonite. I will study him, learn what makes him so certain, and when I understand, I will break that certainty and use it to rebuild my empire." As Vader called for guards, explosions rocked the Death Star's superstructure. "My lord!" An officer's panicked voice cut through the comm. "Rebel fleet dropping out of hyperspace. Multiple capital ships. It's the entire Alliance armada. They're targeting the Death Star." On the bridge of Home 1, Admiral Akbar studied the tactical display with grim satisfaction. "Thanos did exactly what we anticipated. He divided the Empire against itself. Now we end both threats. All fighters launch. Target the main reactor. We finish what we started at Yavin." Princess Leia stood beside him, her expression troubled. "Thanos is still on that station." "Then he dies with the Emperor," Akbar replied. "We cannot save him, and we should not. He is as much a threat as Palpatine." "Is he?" Leia watched the Death Star on the view screen, half complete but still terrifying. Or is he just different, another tyrant with better marketing? Does it matter? We destroy the weapon, we end the tyranny. Whoever survives can sort out the philosophy later. Aboard Sanctuary 2, watching from the asteroid field's concealment, Gamora saw the rebel fleet's attack vectors and felt cold certainty settle over her. "They will destroy the station," she said quietly. "Father is still aboard." "Then we retrieve him," Ebony Maw replied, already calculating approach vectors. "The shield is down. The Empire is in chaos. We can—" "No." Corvus Glaive's voice was flat. The Mad Titan knew this was a possibility. He accepted it. The mission is what matters. If he falls, we complete his work. "The mission?" Gamora turned on the Black Order with fury in her eyes. "The mission is genocide. Endless mathematical genocide. When does it end? When we've killed half of every species in every galaxy we enter." "When balance is achieved," Ma replied as if explaining to a child. "Your father taught you this." "My father is dying on that station because he couldn't see any solution except killing." Gamora's hands clenched. "I loved him. I still love him. But he's wrong. He has to be wrong. Because if he's right, if mathematics really do require constant culling, then mercy is impossible, growth is impossible, hope is—" The communication console chirped, a weak, damaged transmission from the Death Star's detention level. Thanos' voice, barely audible. "Gamora, if you can hear this, complete the mission. The Death Star's reactor, 17 minutes until rebel torpedoes strike the weak point. The station will be destroyed. Do not attempt rescue." Instead, a long pause. "Find another way. You were right. I was too certain, too rigid. Mathematics are pure, but life is not. Perhaps balance requires more than subtraction." The transmission died. Gamora stared at the console, tears streaming down her green face. Her father, the Mad Titan, the certainty incarnate, the being who never doubted, had just admitted he might be wrong, and he was about to die for that realization. "Get us out of here," she commanded. "Full retreat. We honor his sacrifice by surviving, by learning, by finding the balance he couldn't achieve." "My lady, we could still—" "No." Gamora's voice was steel. "We let him go, and we make sure his death means something more than just another mathematical equation." Sanctuary jumped to hyperspace, carrying the Black Order and the remnants of Thanos' forces away from Endor, away from the Empire, away from the certainty that had defined their existence. On the Death Star in the detention level, Thanos lay in a carbonite freezing chamber as alarms screamed and the station shook from rebel bombardment. Through his damaged body's haze, he felt something unexpected: relief. He had spent decades chasing certainty, building mathematical models of salvation, executing endless cullings. And in the end, confronting Palpatine, a tyrant who also believed he was right, Thanos had finally seen himself clearly. Not a savior, just another broken being who had constructed philosophy to justify trauma. The carbonite began to flow, and Thanos' last conscious thought was not of balance or mathematics or inevitability. It was a question: what if I was wrong? Above, in the throne room, Palpatine felt the rebel assault intensifying and made a decision. "Evacuate! All essential personnel to the Executor. We abandon the Death Star." The admission tasted like ash. "Lord Vader, destroy the carbonite chamber. Thanos dies here." But Vader was already gone, having slipped away in the chaos. Not to escape, to make a choice that would define everything that followed. He found the detention level, found the carbonite chamber with Thanos frozen inside, and stood before it with lightsaber drawn. One strike would end the Mad Titan, would eliminate the threat, would validate the Emperor's power. But it would also prove Thanos right, that the Empire ruled only through murder. Vader lowered his lightsaber. "Let the rebels have you," he said to the frozen form. "Let them judge whether mathematics or mercy should govern the galaxy. I am done making that choice for others." He turned and walked away as rebel fighters breached the hangar bays, as X-Wings screamed toward the reactor, as proton torpedoes armed and launched. The Death Star 2 exploded in a cascade of fire that lit up the Endor system like a newborn star. The Emperor escaped on the Executor. Vader survived. The rebellion celebrated their impossible victory. And in the wreckage, floating in a carbonite block marked only with a serial number, Thanos drifted in the void, alive, frozen, neither victorious nor defeated, simply balanced. The galaxy did not end with Thanos' defeat, nor did it find peace. Emperor Palpatine retreated to the Imperial capital, his Death Star destroyed for a second time, his philosophy of fear proven insufficient against an enemy who offered certainty instead of hope. The Empire fractured further, some systems declaring independence, others doubling down on loyalty, all of them haunted by the question Thanos had forced them to ask: what do we serve beyond power? The Rebel Alliance recovered the carbonite block from the Death Star's wreckage, and Mon Mothma faced the most difficult decision of her leadership. They could execute Thanos, proving they were no better than the Empire. They could free him, risking everything he might do with a second chance, or they could leave him frozen, a mathematical monster preserved in stasis. Neither alive nor dead, perfectly balanced, as he would have said. They chose the third option. Thanos remained in carbonite, stored in a maximum security facility on Hoth, guarded by soldiers who had seen the recordings of his broadcasts and couldn't decide if they were watching a madman or a prophet. Darth Vader returned to his meditation chamber and replayed his encounter with the Mad Titan endlessly. He had faced an opponent who mirrored him, broken by loss, certain in purpose, willing to commit atrocities for a greater goal. The difference was that Vader had embraced his darkness, while Thanos still believed his was light. In the end, Vader wasn't sure which approach was more honest. Sanctuary 2 vanished into the unknown regions, carrying Gamora and the Black Order into exile. They did not disband. They did not surrender Thanos' philosophy, but they questioned it now, searching for the balance their master had sought but never found, a mathematics of life that accounted for more than just subtraction. On 1,000 worlds, in 1,000,000 conversations, beings debated the Mad Titan's legacy. Some called him a monster, others called him pragmatic. A few, more than the rebellion wanted to admit, called him right. After all, the galaxy was overpopulated, resources were strained, and no one, not the Empire or the rebellion, had offered a solution beyond keep fighting and hope it works out. Thanos had offered certainty, cold, brutal, unforgiving certainty, and in a galaxy drowning in chaos, certainty was seductive. Years later, when the Empire finally fell and the New Republic rose from its ashes, one of the first debates in the new Senate concerned the carbonite prisoner on Hoth. Should they keep him frozen, execute him, free him, and put him on trial? Princess Leia, now a senator herself, stood before the assembly and spoke words that would echo through history. Thanos asked us a question we still haven't answered. What do we do when the mathematics of survival conflict with the morality of compassion? He gave us his answer: call half, save half. We rejected it. But we haven't offered a better solution. Until we do, that frozen monster represents not just a threat, but our failure, our inability to prove that hope is stronger than calculation. The Senate voted to keep him frozen, indefinitely, neither executed nor freed, a reminder that some problems have no good solutions, only choices between different kinds of wrong. In his carbonite prison, Thanos dreamed, not of conquest or balance or inevitable victory, but of a question he had never allowed himself to ask on Titan when his world was dying and no one would listen. What if there was another way? The Mad Titan, who had crossed universes, seized Imperial shipyards, challenged the dark side itself, and nearly claimed the ultimate weapon, the being who called himself inevitable, was defeated not by superior force or righteous heroism, but by the oldest weapon in existence: doubt. And in a galaxy where the Empire crumbled, the rebellion struggled to govern, and countless beings tried to rebuild from ashes, that doubt lingered like a shadow. Because Thanos had been wrong about many things, but he had been right about one. Mathematics were inevitable. Resources were finite, and someday, somehow, The galaxy would have to answer his question, even if they never freed him to see it. The Mad Titan's war was over, but his philosophy would haunt the stars for generations. Because he had given them something worse than fear or hope, he had given them certainty that their current path was unsustainable and no alternative vision strong enough to replace his mathematics with meaning. In the end, Thanos achieved a different kind of balance than he intended. Not the culling of populations, but the balancing of philosophies, forcing an entire galaxy to question whether survival required sacrifice, whether mercy required hard choices, and whether the most dangerous tyrants were those who genuinely believed they were saving you. The Force would remember him, not as light or dark, but as something that existed outside the binary, a void in the cosmic order that refused to be categorized, calculated, or controlled. And somewhere in the unknown regions, Gamora looked at the stars and whispered to the father she had loved and feared and finally questioned, "You taught me that the universe requires balance, but you never taught me that balance requires wisdom, not just mathematics. I'll find that wisdom, Father, for both of us." The galaxy far, far away had survived its encounter with the Mad Titan, but it would never forget what it felt like to face an enemy who was absolutely certain he was right.